Hello there. Today we'll be discussing about theories of international trade and international investment, including international trade in general and its importance, mercantilism, Adam Smith in the theory of absolute advantage, David Ricardo in the theory of comparative advantage, the Aksher-Allen model, Raymond Vernon in the product of life cycle theory of trade, contemporary trade theories, and lastly, Porter's diamond. To proceed, let's define what international trade is. So, international trade is the exchange of goods and services among people, organizations, and countries. Countries are linked in many different ways, whether it's political, social, cultural, or commercial events and activities. The exchange takes place of differences in the cost of production between countries and increases the economic welfare of each country by widening the range of goods and services available for consumption. International trade has been a vital means of the countries and business economies. In terms of mercantilism, it is an economic and cultural philosophy of the 16th and 17th centuries reflecting the emergence of economies based on commerce. This was a form of economic nationalism that sought to increase the prosperity and power of a nation through restrictive trade practices. This trade theory establishes economic policies that promoted exports and discouraged imports. Mercantilism, or economic state building, involves extensive governmental intervention in economic life with the objective of fostering the growth of national commerce and industry. According to this theory, a country can produce some goods more efficiently than other countries based on a country's advantage in the production of goods. Smith was primarily concerned with the factors that led to increased wealth in a community, recognizing the parallel contribution of the manufacturing industry. The division of labor and subsequent trade lead to an overall increase in prosperity from which all can benefit. Smith believed was the root source of the eponymous wealth of nations. In the theory of international trade, Ricardo stated explicitly the law of comparative costs. David Ricardo explained how countries could exploit their own advantage and gain from international trade. A country will specialize the line of production in which has a greater comparative advantage in cost than other countries. It will depend upon imports from abroad of all such commodities in which it has relative cost disadvantage. Comparative advantage, according to Ricardo, was based on what was given up or traded off in producing one product instead of the other. The Aksher-Allen model, also known as factor proportions theory, expands multiple factors of production. The model assumes that labor and capital are used in production of two final goods. The assumption of the productive factors, which are capital and labor, allows for the introduction of another realistic feature in production. The HO factor proportions theory of comparative advantage states that the international commerce compensates for the uneven geographic distribution of productive resources. The traded commodities are really bundles of factors, which are land, labor, and capital.
Raymond Vernon and the product life cycle theory of trade. Raymond Vernon studies the whole life cycle of high-income or labor-saving products through the point of view of the invention of a new product, the maturing product, and a standardized product. The purpose of the following section is to make a distinction between the product cycle and product life cycle concepts to clarify the relationship between the two and redefine the International Product Life Cycle, or IPLC. So, in Vernon's theory, it suggests that MNCs, or multinational corporations, typically develop products in their home countries utilizing local resources and technologies. In Vernon's idea of theory, he proposed that the product life cycle could be divided into 4 stages, which can be introduction, the growth, maturity, and decline, in order to maximize the cost and profit of international trading. Contemporary trade theories. The contemporary trade theories says about competition and comparative advantage. As globalization is a phenomenon that has remade the economy and trade balance of virtually every nation, reshaped almost every industry, and touch billions of lives, often in surprising and ambiguous ways. These similar recent headlines set the stage for contemporary trade theories and their relevance to today's world trade dominance. So, while contemporary trade theories involves ideas and theories that explains the concepts of how countries engage in international trade in the modern world. So, these theories explains how goods and services works in international trade among nations. Porter's element of national advantage. Michael Porter 1990 believes that standard classical theories on comparative advantage are inadequate. According to Porter, a nation attains a competitive advantage if its firms are competitive. Firms become competitive through innovation. Now, innovation can include technical improvements to the products or to the production process. There are 4 key elements to international entrepreneurial success according to Porter's model. First is factor conditions, followed by demand conditions, related and supporting industries, and firm strategy, structure, and rivalry. Factor conditions refers to inputs used as factors of production such as labor, land, natural resources, capital, and infrastructure. Porter argues that the key factors of production or specialized factors are created and not inherited. Specialized factors of production are skilled labor, capital, and infrastructure. Demand conditions. A sophisticated domestic market is an important element in producing competitiveness. Firms that face a sophisticated domestic market are likely to sell superior products because the market demands high quality, and a close proximity to such consumers enables the firm to better understand the needs and desires of the customers. Related and supporting industries. Porter continues with his theory that states with a set of strongly related and supporting industries is important for firms to be competitive. This includes suppliers and related industries. This usually occurs at a regional level as opposed to a national level. Firm strategy, structure, and rivalry. Number 1, strategy. So, strategy has 2 kinds. First is capital markets. Capital markets affects the strategy of the firms, and this might be short-run outlook and long-run outlook. And then second is individuals' career choices. Individuals base their career decisions on opportunities and prestige. Number 2, structure. Porter argues the best management styles vary among industries. Some countries may be oriented toward a particular style of management. The countries will tend to be more competitive in industries for which that style of management is suited. Number 3, rivalry. Porter states that intense competition spurs innovation. With international competition, there is enough differences between companies and their environments to provide handy excuses to managers who were outperformed by their competitors. Overall, Porter's theory states that if the elements in the diamond are increasingly present, then the trade increases. The elements in the diamond constitute a system and are self-reinforcing. The model describes the competitive advantage that nations or groups possess based on factors available to them. The theory explains how governments can act to improve a country's position in a globally competitive economic environment.
So let's proceed to the chapter 4, the monetary system in the international arena. The topics that will be discussed are the balance of payments, the foreign exchange market, purchasing power parity theory, and the gold standard. So what is a balance of payment? So the balance of payment, or BOP, is a summary of the economic transactions of a country with the rest of the world for a specific period. It serves as an accounting statement on the economic dealings between residents of the country and the non-residents. So the balance of payment uses the double entry system of bookkeeping. So double entry system is a method of recording transactions where every business transactions, an entry is recorded in at least two accounts as a debit or credit. So when we say debit account, it is a transaction where the flow or which the home country must pay and requires the supply of the home currency. And a credit account, it is a transaction wherein the flow or which the home country is paid and increases the demand for the home currency by foreign residents. So there are three types of balance payments. The different three sections are the current account, capital account, and the financial account. So when we say current account, there is an example of this one is trade in goods, services, primary income, and the secondary income. Capital account, there are also three: capital transfers, investment flows, transactions, and assets. And the financial account, there is two: the direct investment and the portfolio investments. So the foreign exchange market, it is the set of exchange rates between different currencies. The exchange rate is the price of one nation's currency in terms of another. So the demand for a currency arises from its exports and all credit items in the balance of payment accounts, while the supply of the currency arises from its imports and all debit items. The foreign exchange market, there are factors influencing the demand for the supply of currency, and these are: first, the incomes at home and abroad, relative inflation, and the interest rates.
Free market. In a free market, prices for goods and services are determined by the natural interplay of supply and demand, reflecting the decisions made by both sellers and buyers. Flexible exchange rate system. The exchange rate system where the exchange rate is dependent upon the supply and demand of the money in the market. In flexible exchange rate system, its currency values are determined by market forces. A currency appreciates when its value rises due to demand, and it depreciates when its value falls due to decreased demand. Fixed exchange rate. A fixed exchange rate means a country's currency is set at a constant value in relation to another currency or a group of currencies, promoting stability and international trade. The purpose of fixed exchange rate system is to maintain stability by tying a country's currency value to another currency or gold, limiting fluctuation and providing predictability for trade and economic planning. Fixed exchange rate provide greater certainty for exporters and importers, the help of the government. Fixed exchange rate offers exporters and importers increased certainty by minimizing currency value fluctuations. And additionally, they assist governments in managing economic stability and fostering a favorable environment for the international trade.
So PPT theory. PPT means purchasing power parity. PPT theory assumes that goods and services are identical across different countries. Also, it assumes that there are no barriers to trade between countries such as tariff, quotas, or transportation costs. PPT theory can be used to compare the living standards between countries, as it takes into account the differences in the cost of living. PPT theory can also be used to predict the future movements of exchange rates. And lastly, the PPT theory has some limitation, as it does not take into account the differences in the productivity, technology, and other factors that affect the prices of goods and services. So let's proceed to the gold standard. A gold standard is a system of fixed exchange rates whereby the value of each currency was fixed in terms of gold. So there are advantages and disadvantages of the gold standard. First is that the advantages. It limits the power of government or the banks to cause price inflation by excessive issue of paper currency. Second advantage is that it creates certainty in international trade by providing a fixed pattern of exchange rates. So what are the disadvantages of gold standard? And these are, it may not provide sufficient flexibility in the supply of money. Second disadvantage is that a country may not be able to isolate its economy from depression or inflation in the rest of the world. And the third one is that the process of adjustment for a country with a payments deficit can be a long and painful whenever an increase in unemployment or a decline in the rate of economic expansion occur. So the gold standard, the Bretton Woods system, was replaced the gold standard after World War II because of some reason that will be explained in the reporting. Under the system, exchange rates were fixed in terms of US dollars and the dollar was fixed in terms of gold. So the system came to end in 1971 as the dollar became overvalued and the United States was running chronic balance of payments deficits. Since 1971, the world turned into a system of managed exchange rates in which diversity was so great that it is referred to as a non-system.